First speaker is Mark Lawson. And Mark, I have known Mark a long time, and he is a professor in residence in the Department of OBGYN and Reproductive Sciences at UC San Diego School of Medicine. And he got his bachelor's degree at San Diego State and his PhD at UC Irvine in virology, which I find very ironic, actually. And then he did his postdoc at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies at UC San Diego, where he was both a UC Presidential Postdoctoral Fellow and a Ford Foundation Fellow. And then he joined Ligand Pharmaceuticals as a research scientist. And then he went on to become a faculty member at UC San Diego. He is the co-director of a MARC program at UCSD that supports undergraduate students pursuing careers in biomedical sciences. He has served on a variety of different programs with the Endocrine Society and the NIH's NIDDK network of minority health research investigators. And he is the chair of the Stem Cell Research Oversight Committee and was the inaugural faculty director of postdoc training and education at UC San Diego. But he is also since 2015, the director of the UC Presidential Postdoctoral Fellowship Program. And actually, he just became the president-elect of the Society of Senior Ford Fellows. And so I've actually known Mark because we were both Ford Fellows together. But when we talk about mentoring, I want to just highlight that Mark has been an incredible support throughout my career. He is the person that asked that I start doing some work with the Endocrine Society, both the future leaders in, okay, this is where I always forget, advancing research excellence, FLAIR, and working with the Minority Affairs Committee at Endocrine Society. And I had never, my home had always been the Society of Study of Reproduction, and that now Endocrine Society is where I really do a lot of work. And if it hadn't been for Mark and then other sort of strategic supports throughout my career, I wouldn't necessarily be doing all of the work that I'm doing now. And so I really appreciate all of the support and the help that Mark has provided for me. And now I get to see him a lot because not only has he coming today, but he's also part of our Includes grant from NSF, and which I was, when Windsor said Clay is actually one of the folks on the leadership team for that grant. So we have a lot of connections here across the board for a variety of different programs. And Mark has been doing the PPFP program. We also have been members until recently of PPFP. And he has a lot of experience having to work along the changes that have occurred. And so I'm really excited to hear him speak today to help us as we navigate the changes in political requirements for us here in North Carolina. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mark. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the introduction, Yvette. Yeah, we do have our paths have crossed so many different ways, which kind of shows how a few people doing work can really make a lot of change in a lot of different places. So I think it's a good testament to how networking and community among scholars can really make a difference in careers and in institutions. So and I really appreciate the opportunities I've had. And listening to that makes me think I'm going to have to shed some of these responsibilities here. So thanks for inviting me to North Carolina. I got on the second leg of my journey here about 10 minutes before the notice came out. So I was committed to flying here to Charlotte, but it's really delightful outside. After this, I'm going to go and take my BB gun outside and hopefully not shoot my eye out. But it looks like a wonderful place to be running around. So I'm in a hotel room over here by the UNC campus. But I was invited here to talk to you about the UC President's Postdoctoral Fellowship Program, not only about the program itself, but sort of how the program has navigated changes in California because although and I'll give a little bit of history about that, but many aren't aware that in California, through our unique constitutional amendment process, which is by popular vote, in 1996, the state of California voters enacted an amendment to the Constitution called Prop 209, which eliminated any use of public funds for anything that supports that specifically supports people from protected groups, race, gender, national origin, and ethnicity, and essentially mirrors what the SFFA concern was about. So we're still here. It's been 25 years since that's happened, a little more than that. And still accomplishing the work of our original mission. So I'm going to share my screen and do that. And I too am working off a laptop. So I'm going to share my screen and then hopefully show you my slides and I'll just be a floating head here, I guess. So, so I'm going to try this and then do this. And hopefully, is that just the slideshow? Okay, good.
Yep.
I have learned. It's taken me 5 years, but I have learned how to do this. Um, uh, yeah. So briefly, I'm faculty in the School of Medicine in the OB/GYN Reproductive Sciences as an in-residence professor. That's technical. However, I'm here as the president's postdoctoral fellowship program director, which is a program that's actually currently hosted up at the Berkeley campus and in Oakland. So I have a very long commute sometimes to get to work. But I am going to give you some history of the program and sort of its how it works and how it's been able to make impact, so that there's some little bit of understanding about that. But one of the things I want to do is put in context the challenge that the University of California has, just to kind of build some background awareness. So, California is a big place. So essentially, it's a state that stretches from Savannah, Georgia, to the Connecticut, Massachusetts border, um, and as uh, diverse as that region is on the East Coast. It's essentially just the same. Some people remark that it's really a couple of states all rolled into one. And in working in both Northern and Southern California, it really does. There are some striking differences around there. And you can see the campuses are spread generally in the population centers of Southern California. And then depending where you are in California, San Francisco is Southern California to those up in Humboldt County, but it's Northern California according to San Franciscans. But it's a very ethnically diverse state as well. It's a minority state. So the white alone population is about 35%, so about a third. Um, but there's an incredible diversity of mixed race, Native Americans, Pacific Islanders, Asian population, particularly Hispanic and Latino populations. For historical reasons, California and then the western coast of the U.S. has had a much more diverse influx of immigrants and settlers uh, that came into the state. So it's got a unique type of diversity that may not be necessarily replicated throughout the rest of the U.S. But it's a very, very diverse challenge. And as you might think, in the establishment of the universities, and through history and socioeconomic reasons, the University of California faculty generally, institutions that were created throughout their history of the state where most PhDs were awarded at primarily white institutions on the East Coast. For instance, the School of Medicine in San Diego was essentially an explant of Yale University, in 1962, and that's what started. And there's still strong, connections between institutions from founding faculty. These institutions, except for Berkeley and LA, are not very old. Um, but but it was recognized even back in the 70s and 80s that there was a challenge with having a representative faculty. The University of California is a public institution, and it's chartered by the state, and is part of the overall state educational plan. And in that charge is that it must serve the citizenship and the public of the state of California. And that's actually its primary mission. So often we think of, and even people within the University of California think of it as a world university, and all research one oriented. Um, but it's really not that way. And actually, a big obligation of the institution is to serve the public. And it was noted even as far back as then that that was not happening because of the lack of diversity in the faculty. There were, uh, you know, people attending the university that have no cultural connection to those that are running the institution. And that's a problem. So in 1984, the university established a program under this name that was explicitly meant to encourage outstanding women and minority PhD recipients to pursue academic careers at the University of California. It wanted to bring fellows in that were not well represented so that they would potentially become faculty at the UC. Um, and so what it did it by offering research fellowships and professional development to what were, assessed to be outstanding scholars in any field whatsoever, whose research, teaching, and service looked like it would contribute to diversity. So that was in 1984, firmly under you know, the design of affirmative action. As we're speaking here, that's being dismantled. I think just like while we were sitting here, an executive order was signed that essentially dismantled Lyndon Johnson's implementation of affirmative action in public funding. So it's happening in real time, right in front of us. I got a little notification popping up on my Twitter feed. Um, but as I mentioned, the state of California did essentially went along this route is in 1996. And in 1996, the conversation was really around the unfair distribution, what people felt like were unfair distribution of public resources and being excluded from that, which was creating the backlash, which is almost a microcosm of the larger political situation that we see now, with backlash and other things. But still being faced with this challenge and how to do the work, the program wasn't dismantled, and the university didn't back away from pursuing the underlying mission, which was to promote a public serving university to, in the best way possible, serve its students and serve the public and the taxpayers of the state. So, so there is a difference in where institutions retreat or where they just rethink how they're accomplishing that mission. So in post Prop 209, this program rethought what it was doing and really stepped away from thinking about these programs in terms of groups and how to benefit groups, and think about what the underlying causes are for this disparity and this lack of connection between faculty and student body. And so we sort of rephrased the mission statement back then, and my predecessors really did, I think, a very thoughtful and far-reaching job in undertaking this task to think of how to do this in this context. And so the program sort of refocused and with the underlying message to seek outstanding scholars with this potential to bring to their research, teaching, and service, a unique perspective that's coming from their educational background. From how does your background make you unique in your discipline and also make you unique in the position of a faculty member at the University of California? And how does that experience and in your understanding of these challenges is how do you be a good mentor, role model, and a professor to someone who may be a first generation student, who may come from a background where higher education was a pipe dream and not, not for them. How do you do that? And what is it in people that makes them able to do that? That can we identify and support so that they will have come join the UC faculty, um, and further that mission. The other underlying, challenge is, we think of the big UC campuses like, Berkeley, um, UCLA, San Diego, I mean, we're talking, San Diego's, almost hitting $2 billion of research funding, in one campus alone. And very oriented towards the mission of an R1 and doing the best science, doing the best scholarship. A lot of pressure in the enterprise to push to establish and hold that R1 position. But we have other campuses across the system that are more, primarily undergraduate institutions that aren't, they're barely R1s. We have 6 HSIs in the 10 campuses at UC. And UC Davis being the latest one. So we have 8 Hispanic serving R1 institutions, and we're having to rethink what does it mean to be an R1 institution that is serving a largely growing Latino population in California. So by rethinking about how we do our work and how are we selecting and under supporting fellows, the program's taken a certain approach, and that we hope is in its underlying effort is identifying those people that can make an impact in this area. So, I mentioned we have I haven't mentioned, but I will mention and discuss later on that we have partner programs that we're assisting along with this. UNC Charlotte and Chapel Hill have been a partner for a long time. Chapel Hill's had a program as long as ours. They was also founded, the Carolina Scholars, I believe, was founded also in 1984. So this was a nationally recognized issue. And we're trying to harmonize this process of bringing in scholars across a partnership network, so that it's relatively easy for a scholar who's interested in going into an academia and has this talent for support to move into the professoriate. So for the University of California, an applicant must identify a tenured faculty mentor to serve, who will serve as their mentor. They need to write a research statement. Research statement is very important. It's short, but it needs to be of high level. And essentially, that's a first round screen. And we need a letter from the mentor demonstrating their commitment to the career development and how they're going to advocate for the scholar. So we can have amazing scholars come in, but work for mentors who don't have a good track record, who don't understand their role as being an advocate and a guide to the scholar, who will not get this fellowship because they don't have the right team in time. So there's a lot of emphasis on the quality of the mentor, and that's not just do they have lots of research dollars or something like that, or are they the most known? It's do they have actually a demonstrated track record of supporting new scholars and bringing more into the ranks of academia. Now, the education and background statement is sort of the free where the applicant can discuss the things that motivate them and make them want to be faculty and make them want to be in a role as a role model, a future mentor, and a scholar all at once. And so that's the third leg of the application process. The other thing that's been very important for this program is that it's reviewed by faculty. So we have obviously we're a big program and we get a lot of applications. So we need a big reviewer pool, but we have a pool that's actually exceeded this number now, about 250 faculty across the system that do the assessments of the applicants. So these aren't fellows that are picked by administrators. These are picked by faculty who know what they're looking for in their discipline and know how to decode and understand what is valuable in a potential candidate in the context of their own discipline. Because what's important in physics is going to be completely different than what's important in, a humanistic discipline. And same thing in biology versus engineering or anything. They're all different. So we let the faculty decide what it means to be contributing to that disciplinary area. Um, we get a lot of fellows, and campuses also will support individual fellows off our alternates list. And we do award fellowships in specialized areas. There are some both private and institutional sources of funds to support postdocs. And under an MOU, we essentially let them use our review process to select candidates in those specific areas, with the requirement that our review process is what, rankings are supported. Now, this program is quite large. Obviously, University of California is big. I did some quick thumbnail numbers. There's been about, the annual production of earned doctorates, underrepresented minorities in the U.S. is, it's approaching 10,000, but it's been floating around there for a bit. This may even be a post-COVID bump and delay in graduations. We're certainly seeing that in the University of California. But if you see that and you sort of look at our applications, we're hovering around 1,000 applications of this program. We're 10 institutions all in one. So that's a big number, but it's a big institution. So by campus, that's about 100, 150 applications per campus. So one of the things that was interesting is about 3/4 of our applicants are from underrepresented minority groups. And so overall, the interest of new earned doctorates in going into academia, at least as measured by application to this program, is actually, quite significant. We're attracting, more than 10% of newly earned doctorates every year throughout our network. If I added in our partner programs, that number goes up by a few more hundred. There's a substantial proportion of new earned doctorates that are interested in going in the professoriate, seeking mentorship and guidance and moving into that direction. And so there's a need that we're addressing, not only through our program alone, but through our network of partnership programs. I realize that's a bit of a complicated slide, but I am happy to share this slide deck after, if there's people interested in this. Our application base is really, really broad. It's about 25% Latino. It's weighted towards those identifying as women, and we have a broad, sort of reflective of the state. We have a broad racial and ethnic diversity amongst our applicants. So it's a very broad. So without having anybody can apply to this program. And as you see, there aren't any racial, ethnic, or gender requirements to be a part of this program yet. Even though that's the case, we do get broad participation in this program. Part of it may be from reputation, part of it's from the demographics of California, but we're drawing applicants from all over the world. And so what we're identifying is through our through our mission goals of improving the faculty, people are attracted to that. So it's a little bit of that build it and they will come kind of syndrome here. So where are applicants coming from? I got to move my things around to see this, but primarily white institutions across the institution with a lot of HSI applicants. We have a notable number of HBCU applicants and international applicants as well. The program supports international applicants in order to provide coverage for those that are under DACA, which is a substantial number in California. Also, we get a lot of private institutions. About a third come from private institutions, but the majority come from public institutions. And actually, these public institutions are really very broad. I mean, we get, pretty much every state system in the U.S. will have representation in our applicant pool. So we're not just drawing from an exclusive population of highly reputable programs. We're drawing from the broad national pool of PhD trained scholars from across the country. Now, this is an intimidating slide, but what or graph, but what I kind of wanted to show was what was the impact with our fellows and our fellow demographics with the implementation of Prop 209. So if you look down at the At the x-axis here, this is even smooth data because it really bounces around. This is 3-year averages, not yearly average numbers. But if you look, 1996 was when that when Prop 209 passed. Um, and, aside from seeing a decline in Latino applicants, we really didn't see a decline in applicants, and we even saw an increase, in some applicants. We did see a decline, 5 years later or more, in white applicants. But we've maintained a pretty broad diversity of fellows in the program, even despite of the charge. And this is from that pivoting about, how we're supporting people and how we're making the selections. We're selecting people in this process for their research and for what they do. What do they do to promote um, inclusiveness in the institution? Are they good mentors? Are they good role models? Do they have a track record of doing things other than just their research? So we're looking for researchers, scholars plus. And that's very important. That's going to come down in a slide later. I'm going to show you kind of what that is. So, but what this is showing is that, even in the face of anti-affirmative action backlash that California went through in the 90s, and in the implementation of Prop 209, the program seemed to maintain a pretty broad diversity of fellows supported, both in the applicant and in the supported fellows pool. And the program's grown over the years. We've really done some hard work in investing in the program in order to support more and more fellows and thinking of clever ways of doing it, both expanding our national network and in supporting fellowships at the institution. And through these different arrangements, our own program has undergone steady growth since about 2016 or so. The program was very small for many, many years, but we sort of understood that more needs to be done, and the program needed to have a real impact. And so we've worked towards growing it over the years and expanding this national network, which is constantly, it's been adding folks. We're still in negotiations with other institutions to become a part of this network. You can see Charlotte and Chapel Hill have been participating in this. One of the important things about this partnership program is that we essentially get, this applicant database. Those scholars that are interested in going into the professoriate are largely represented in the applicant pool that we see. We want to share that and use that as a tool for everyone to recruit their faculty from. So, some institutions are not big enough to have their own programs or fully supported in a way, but if they're a part of this, they can, leverage the size and the group in a way that they can promote recruitment more, and target the scholars that they really are seeking to hire. Now, we do some interesting things to sort of make this happen. So what we do is we provide to the campus, it's a historical number for other reasons, but it's $425,000 to a campus of completely discretionary funds, not tied to that person. That's awarded over 5 years, which means they got to keep that person employed for 5 years or they lose the money. So they get it in 5-year tranche, a yearly tranche at the beginning of every academic year. It's a safe allocation of funds. These come out of the state general funds, and they can be used for anything, to fill a salary gap in between a hiring plan, for startup, to help do partner accommodations. Those are the kinds of things that this money gets used for. Really, salary is kind of a waste of that money because it's very flexible funds. And it's at the discretion of the campus of how that gets used. That puts the power into the campuses for working the problem. And then also some campuses pass those funds all the way down to the dean level. And in fact, what we're seeing is that the most effective use of these funds is to provide them to the school and to the school's dean to do what they want. UC Irvine uses those funds to create a small grants program for its faculty to start research projects. They've got, they're getting, they've hired 30 faculty over 5 years. They're getting $1 million+ a year of completely discretionary funds that they are using to support their departments broadly and improve the programs within the school. So that's where having motivated and onboard deans in this kind of arrangement is very effective. Now, we also have a search waiver that's been put on our regions, which I think is sort of the equivalent of the board for the UNC system, have made a specific policy that the institution needs to understand what the barriers are to recruitment and work towards relieving those barriers of talented people. And they want, this is part of that public mission. This is derived from the charter of the University of California and its plan from back in the 60s. Um, but our academic council, our state senate, this is our faculty body, governance body, uh, has a policy out on what are the best practices for diversifying faculty. And part of a waiver of open search, this program is explicitly named in this campus. I mean, in the university waiver policies, so that candidates that look like they'll are from this program that look like they'd be good fit can be hired under a search waiver, which saves lots of money, time, and effort. And there's confidence in this process because of the selection process for the fellows, which is a faculty-based selection process. And due to the competitiveness, means that the fellows are essentially equivalent to shortlist candidates for faculty positions. And under that shortlist logic, they can potentially qualify for a waiver of open search. Um, and so, those are the two tools that are used to encourage hiring of fellows. Um, and over the years, this type of program has been embraced by the faculty. You can see as we've grown our fellowship, which I showed earlier, numbers, that we have also grown our hiring activity within the institution. And so the sheer presence of these fellows and these policies encourages. So we're not picking winners. We're not saying this person must be hired, in a department. We're just providing a pool of highly successful and talented fellows that then go in the open job market and end up being hired by the UC. But also, 40% of our fellows are hired within the UC. Another 30 go off to other institutions across the US. So they're very competitive as fellows. And there's a lot of distribution of which campuses they're hired at. They really go almost at every institution in the UC. And, Irvine has been very aggressive. It went through a growth phase. But LA is not going through a growth phase, but does very well with hiring. And if you adjust these numbers, normalize them by the student bodies, Santa Cruz and Santa Barbara are actually some of the highest performers. They're, more liberal arts than research oriented, although they are our ones. Um, the but they, proportion of their students are very, very active in recruiting from this pool. So there's administrative buy-in to supporting these programs that facilitates hiring at these campuses. Now this has been so interestingly, this is a common assumption that somehow diversity or having scholars from different backgrounds, in your faculty has somehow compromised excellence. And I run into this constantly. This is 80% of what I do, is discuss with people why this is a false assumption. And I have data to back it up, and I'm happy to share this data with you, that's actually not the case. We select for people that are engaged in their disciplines. And in fact, fellows from this program achieve tenure at a higher rate than their open search peers. So if we leave a department to go off and do an open search and they hire what they think is the best person, they're more likely to lose that person by tenure than if they hired a president's or chancellor's fellow from our program. Our fellows are outstanding and they're highly successful. And it's not they're outdoing them by 10%. Our fellows have a 96% tenure rate. The normal tenure rate is in the 80s in the UC. And this is not by matchmaking. This is by by finding the best scholars in the pool, supporting them, giving them the tools to make them competitive scholars, and then letting essentially the market go from there. And with that, we have this very, very successful cohort that, and these are people that are now in leadership positions across the institution now. And the other thing is we're actually making an impact on the program. Now, we're not by any means. I mean, this is a big institution, but we're changing the curve in the rate of change in of the makeup of the faculty. We're supporting scholars who are engaged in the mission of the university of creating a accessible institution that has a faculty that has a common background with the student body that can understand identify what talent is. In without the rigid adherence to traditional academic understanding of what's a successful and what's not. We're our program is over 10%. We're 13% of underrepresented faculty hired in the system have come through our program. Now, if you took that away, then that line flattens out, and there's much more longer time period for us to achieve a representative, publicly representative faculty within the UC system. And overall, we're contributing 5% of hires to the institution. So that may sound small, but it's meaningful to have a program that it's not a blip. It's well known. If 1 in 20 hires are from this program, over time, we've got 300 400 faculty hired into the UC system. That's essentially another, campus in a lot of ways, that are just president's fellows, and they're moving through the ranks. So that's where I wanted to end the talking bit. I just wanted to show all of that work is done by a few amazing people. Kimberly Atkinson on the left is the assistant director. We're missing one newer person in this photo, but Ernestine Harrison and Portia Groce also do this work. We're managing about 100 to 150 scholars at any one time throughout the system, geographically diverse, trying to bring people together, create these supporting and mentoring networks that I mentioned in the beginning. I didn't give you specifics about how the program is run. I'm happy to talk about that, but really it's based on forming community and support networks amongst the scholars, so that as they mature in their careers, they have the supports that Yvette mentioned in the introduction. That helps them move forward. The exact same introduction that Yvette said about me is exactly what I can say about Yvette and how she's helped me through my career. And these networks are incredibly important. So bringing scholars together in a way that helps them form their own communities is really important. So I'm going to end there.